Hey guys, you stumbled across a bonus episode of the Casual Cinecast. In this episode, we are going to talk about El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
Bonus.
Yeah. Join us.
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me, as always, is a sleep-deprived Mike. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. And thank you for acknowledging my plight.
Yeah, everybody's plight after last night and a Breaking Bad movie dropped.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, if this is your first time joining us, this is just a bonus episode. We're going to be talking about El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. We will be spoiling Breaking Bad up to the finale. I figured that went without saying, but you have been warned. Also, maybe some tangential conversation about Better Call Saul, but I doubt we're going to have anything too spoilery there, if you haven't yet watched that show.
Yeah, for sure. And you also may notice that Justin is missing. This is kind of a last-minute episode that Mike and I wanted to put together real quick, and Justin had real life that was kind of getting in the way. However, Mike and I have no life, so we had the opportunity to record this podcast. We hope you enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And what Chris was alluding to earlier, I am sleep deprived because I actually stayed up last night. I live in Central Time Zone, so does Chris, but that means Netflix does not drop new stuff until like 2 a.m.
Ugh.
I know. And I had work this morning, so I stayed up, watched Breaking Bad, then went to sleep with the intention of going to work. Ended up being an hour late.
Ooh.
I know. And yeah, here I am. But also we could get this bonus episode out to you guys faster.
Yes.
Selflessness. That's what this is all about, really.
Yeah. You're the hero we all deserve, Mike.
All right. If you guys have any opinions or want to contact the show, you can contact us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at @casualcinecast. You can shoot us an email at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And as always, please review the show. Rate it 5 stars if you would. Give us some constructive feedback. You know, why not?
Yeah, tell us, especially on this episode, because it's different than all the other ones, tell us if you like this. If you want more of this or less of it, and we can accommodate.
Yeah. Within that 5-star rating, though.
Yes, for sure.
Hint, hint. Okay, with that, Chris, are we ready to go ahead and just move into our review of El Camino? Or is there anything else?
No, I think that covers everything that I'm thinking of.
All right, let's do this thing.
All right.
I don't know what to tell you. I ain't said like 500 times already. I have no idea where he is. Don't know where he's headed either. North, south, west, east, Mexico, the moon. I don't have a clue. But yo, even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Because I've been watching the news, same as everybody else. I seen that little cage of his they kept him in. I heard about what all they did to him to make sure he kept cooking. So sorry. I don't know what to tell you. No way I'm helping you people put Jesse Pinkman back inside a cage.
All right, one more time. I just wanted to go ahead and say this. We are going to be spoiling everything in Breaking Bad. Probably not very much from Better Call Saul, so don't worry about that. Do you want to have a spoiler section for this movie, Chris, or do you think we should just go all out spoilers?
Let's just go all out.
I think so, too. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So spoilers from the start for El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. The IMDb synopsis says, after escaping Jack and his gang, Jesse Pinkman goes on the run from the police and tries to escape his own inner turmoil. Yeah. Written and directed by Vince Gilligan, starring Aaron Paul, Matt Jones, and Charles Baker. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just kick off my thoughts first. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear them.
Okay. So in preparation for this movie, my girlfriend and I rewatched all of Breaking Bad. I've been keeping up with Better Call Saul, and I was originally planning on rewatching Breaking Bad after that show ended, before, diving back into the original series. But when the trailers for El Camino hit, I didn't want to wait anymore. Too much of, especially the last season 5 was a little foggy on me, because that was the season I watched like week to week, and it was spread out over 2 years. I didn't remember it, I guess, as well as I remembered the first 3 or 4 seasons. And I'm glad I rewatched it, because I think it put me into the right frame of mind for what this movie was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a pretty small scale movie in terms of, I guess, what you would expect, right? It's not like a traditional theatrical film.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. Do we need it? No. But I think it's a nice epilogue to a pretty grim finale. And I think there are enough callbacks and side characters that are given a new send-off to make it fun. I don't love it, but at the same time, I think when it's viewed as just an epilogue to the series and not a standalone film, I think it works really well. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, so like you, I've watched Breaking Bad, and I really enjoyed it. In fact, one of my favorite memories, with you, is going to watch the finale at the Angelica movie theater, the local Dallas movie theater up there.
Yeah.
That was a ton of fun.
That was
fun. And I also, Breaking Bad is great. I was a little late to the game to Breaking Bad in general. Like, I think I joined in like around season 3 or 4 towards the end.
Same. Whenever I started, seasons 1 through 3 were on Netflix, and season 4 had just wrapped up on TV. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I binged seasons 1 through 3 and then got my hands on season 4, I was in the process of waiting for season 5. So the last 2 years of the show, which were season 5, that's when I started watching it like week to week.
Yeah. I think that's about my story too. Better Call Saul is really great. And I guess Better Call Saul is a good example of this film. And Better Call Saul, when originally announced, I was thinking, why? Like, I don't want to ruin Breaking Bad further. And it turned out to be really great. And I kind of had the same reaction to the movie when they announced that. I was, why? And for me, the bar for this movie is really high. And it's unfair to the movie, because I feel like this movie needs to give me a great reason for why it exists. Otherwise, it shouldn't exist, is kind of how I feel about it. While I enjoyed the film, I enjoyed my time with those characters again and seeing them, and I think there's some really good, tense moments in there. I don't know that it clears that bar for me, like that it justifies its existence to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I disagree that the movie needs to do that.
Yeah, and that's fine. And the other thing too I wanted to point out too is I was going to watch a couple of episodes of the Breaking Bad TV show to kind of catch myself up, but I thought it would be interesting for me to have not seen any of it and then watch the movie, to have revisited any of it again, and then for you to have just recently rewatched everything. So I think that contrast could be interesting as well.
Yeah, makes sense. First and foremost, they probably shouldn't try to make, this movie doesn't work standalone.
Right.
I don't think they should even try to make you think it does. I don't know that they are doing that. I don't know that the marketing is doing that, because it's all leaning really heavily into teasers from people who watched Breaking Bad. You know what I mean? We're teasing this character. We're teasing this character. You remember them.
Right.
In that sense, I think the movie, it's so unique whenever trying to review a movie that is a follow-up to a TV show. I felt the same way about Deadwood earlier this year.
Right, that's a good example.
It's like these movies, they don't work as standalone movies. You can't view them the same way you view movies. You know what I mean? You can't review them the same way. They really have to work as final chapters for the series.
Right.
Now, that said, did we need this? Did we need to revisit Jesse Pinkman? No. Like I said earlier, it's not necessary. We saw him last, and we could have gotten the impression that everything in this movie was probably going to happen, or could have happened, or was a possibility of happening after the finale closes. It's so hard, because I've been living with the finale of Breaking Bad since 2013. But I remember for the weeks leading up to the finale, and for a few weeks after the finale, I did feel a little empty. Because Jesse Pinkman was the character that I was the most interested in when watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
And what was going on with him, I was so concerned he was going to die. I think everyone was so concerned Jesse Pinkman was going to die before the end of Breaking Bad.
Right.
I remember there was all these people speculating and fearing about it. And so if I could go back in time to 2013, after I haven't lived with it for 5 to 6 years, right? If I could go back to that time and be like, hey, do you want a movie that follows up Jesse Pinkman after that finale? I would be like, absolutely, yes. That was the one part of the finale that I felt was underwhelming. Because I feel like they wrapped up Walt's story perfectly. But yeah, the open-ended nature of it was fun. But at the time, I really did want more Jesse Pinkman's story. So I feel like people who are watching Breaking Bad for the first time now, they get this nice, beautiful, optional epilogue for the character that, yeah, like I said, it's not necessary. It's very clearly filmed years later, but if you've been watching Better Call Saul, that doesn't matter to you, probably.
Yeah.
Because you're probably used to that at this point if you've watched that show. But, yeah, I don't know. Is it perfect? No. Are there some conveniences to make it wrap up in the short form of a movie? Absolutely. But it feels like an extension of the show. It feels like it's in the right tone with the show.
Yeah.
And I feel like next time you rewatch the series, I think if you just tack this movie on as like the next 2 episodes after the finale, I think it'll just be a bonus for your rewatch, you know?
Yeah. So you were talking about the ending, and one of the things that struck me as I was watching the movie, and specifically the ending of the movie, is that it's the same ending to a certain extent.
Right, yeah, he's driving away, but instead of chaotically laughing and smiling, he looks like he's at peace and smiling.
Yeah. But I also felt, except for that now he's at peace or he's smiling, like it almost leaves us in the same spot, which is an interesting thing. So almost to that point, that's where I felt like, well, we're in the same spot we were when we left Pinkman before. I mean, except for it's just not as chaotic, like it's not quite as bad as it was then. Now he's free, I guess. And I guess that's the only difference. Like it's his journey to freedom. Maybe that's the key there. But it just left me with the feeling like, oh, well, we left Pinkman in the same spot. How did you feel about the ending?
I feel like it was, I don't want to say it was obvious, but I feel like that was always what the movie was going to be. Was how does Jesse Pinkman get from the end of where we saw him in Breaking Bad to a better place? Like, I feel like he wouldn't make the movie to put Jesse in a worse place.
Right.
So I had a feeling that no matter what, this was going to end with Jesse getting away somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just the nature of what this movie was always going to be, I assume. Unless it was going to be more sad and more of Jesse Pinkman suffering, which we don't need. That was the last 2 years of Breaking Bad, was just Jesse Pinkman suffering.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like having just come off the show, and for so much of that show, Jesse Pinkman is such a one-note character. So sad, so tragic, constantly the victim. Mm-hmm. It feels nice seeing Jesse take the reins of his own story.
Yeah, kind of get in control.
Yeah, get control of his own story, get control of his own fate. In the show, he was always so apathetic or so lost or so like inviting death. Like he wanted death so much of that series because of all the things that Walt put him through and how terrible he felt for them. It's nice seeing Jesse Pinkman make some decisions on his own. He's also doing things that he can no longer blame Walt for, right? Like he has to do his own bad things in this to get his freedom that Jesse Pinkman, a la seasons 1 through 4, probably couldn't dream of doing.
Right, he's definitely grown and, become his own man, really. I think what you're talking about really points to the one scene with Kristen Ritter in here, where she talks about letting life happen to you or taking control of your own life, and to Jesse, and that really points out that theme that you're talking about.
Yeah. So actually, that brings me up to some. Let's get to some specifics, I guess.
Yes.
So we get 3 or 4. I guess Todd doesn't count. I'm not counting Todd, but we get a flashback with Mike, a flashback with Jane, Kristen Ritter, and we get a flashback with Walt. Am I missing any?
Those are the ones I remember, except for, Todd, of course, has got a much bigger role to play in this.
Yeah, he does. Okay. Did any of those work for you, those scenes?
Yeah, well, especially after what you just said, you brought the Kristen Ritter scene to light and made it make more sense. So that works for me. Actually, the Walt scene, I think one of the things that it did point out to me, and maybe this is a product of not having seen the show recently, but how smart Jesse Pinkman actually is. Like, it's not very many people that can keep up with Walt, I think, especially when it comes to the chemist side of it, And so I kind of just realized he was never as good as Walt, of course, but he kept up. He was actually pretty smart and not as dumb as I thought he was when I watched the show.
Yeah, he graduated high school, Chris.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I liked it too. And also, it's so cool because this is like season 2 era Walt. Before he got the full goatee, but he still had the shaved head and the mustache.
Right.
So this must have been them coming off one of those really long cooks in the desert or something like that, and they were stopping in at that diner. It's kind of like this bittersweet thing that just kind of sums up Walt, this line that he says that he's like, you're lucky. You didn't have to wait, or you get to be part of something special when you're young or something like that. You don't have to wait your whole life to be part of something special. I think that scene perfectly encaptures like Walt and Jesse's relationship throughout the series, because Walt cares about Jesse, but he also never pays attention to Jesse. He's not like, he likes Jesse. He wants to encourage Jesse to go to college or like be good or do something with his life, but he also doesn't care enough to remember that Jesse actually did graduate high school. He just assumes that Jesse was stupid and didn't.
Right.
So it's like being a teacher/father figure while also still being caught up in his own crap, even in the best of times in the relationship, Like,
yeah, Jesse was always kind of like his redheaded stepchild, the one, like, he was a father figure to Jesse for sure, but he didn't ever, an abusive father figure at that, I think, is the key there.
Yeah, he's very selfish, even whenever he's not being selfish. I also liked Mike's send-off. That was kind of nice.
Yeah, at the very beginning there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about Todd too, and especially since you've just recently watched the show, did that elaborate more on like why J.C. Pinkman was so beat up at the end of the series? Did it reveal more about the show?
I'll tell you what it did do. And I remember thinking this as the movie was going on, and last week when I was going through the last half of season 5, Jesse Pinkman is only in captivity in season 5 for about 3 episodes.
Okay.
We don't see a whole lot of that. That plot does not feel very long. And although you see why he's beat up and you see that he's been tortured and you don't need any more, I feel like this really helps flesh out that time period and makes it seem way more traumatic for Jesse. It didn't, like I said, it doesn't need to. It's not necessary. But that plot line is so short, and considering like he spends 5.5 seasons or more not a captive, it's crazy that like the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to Jesse's life is like the last 3 episodes of the series.
Yeah, let me ask you this so I can kind of put a timeline in my head. So when he's captured, that is the same time that Walt is going, like the Granite State episode where he's going off. So a lot of time, it may only be 3 episodes,
he gets
but a lot of
captured
time
in
passes in
Ozymandias.
Right. So it's before Walt goes away.
Right. It's the same episode. So
okay,
the 3rd episode from the end of Breaking Bad.
Right.
Is whenever they're out in the desert and Hank just got shot and Jesse's hiding under the car, and Walt is basically like, you still owe me Jesse Pinkman or whatever. He's under the car. Go get him. And then that's when Todd's basically like, hey, how about we like let him cook for us and we don't kill him, but we'll kill him afterwards. And Walt's like, okay. And then Walt leaves, and then Jesse's a prisoner from there on out. So I think he's a prisoner for, I don't know how long, but
feels like several months because
it's
he's
like 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
But show timeline wise, it's only like 2.5 episodes.
Okay.
So I think the movie really helps flesh out that whole plot line a little bit more.
A lot more.
Yeah, at least I was thinking it on the rewatch. The first time I was going through it, I was like, man, get Jesse out of this. I don't want to see Jesse get tortured anymore. This is sad. But
yeah.
I think now that it's all, like, the second rewatch, I did think to myself, like, man, this plot line's very short.
I also want to call out Jesse Plemons because I think he's the best thing that came from Friday Night Lights.
I never watched that show.
Yeah, he was good in it. He's definitely better in Breaking Bad, but Jesse Plemons is great, and I think plays this role. If I met this guy, I think I would have a hard time being around him after this role.
Todd's a great villain because he's always so
Yeah.
nice and polite, but he's like just terrible and awful.
Yeah, it's like this. You want to like him. You're like, oh, Todd actually likes Jesse, but the only way he likes Jesse in the way that you like your dog. You know, like the way you like a pet, and that's not healthy.
And it's also weird because I think he's the one that looks the most different, Jesse Plemons.
Yeah. I was thinking that about Charlie Baker, the guy that plays Skinny Pete. I feel like he looks a lot older.
Yeah, but he's a meth head, so who cares?
Yeah, okay.
Meth heads look old. Yeah. Speaking of, I like how it gives his friends a nice send-off. In theory, Skinny Pete and Badger are fresh off helping Walt blackmail his friends from Gray Matter.
Right.
Which is where they got those huge stacks of cash that they end up giving Jesse anyway. I like to think that they went home, started playing video games, and then Jesse shows up, and they just never got a chance to spend any of that money that they made.
That's funny, actually. Yeah, there's a couple of good set pieces that I kind of wanted to talk about, and one of them is in Jesse Plemons' apartment afterwards. And I think this is kind of when Breaking Bad was at its best. It was when it was like there's a puzzle for you to solve, and you're solving it along with the characters. And I felt like the apartment sequence was really well done, and I loved how the police show up, and then it turns out it's not really the police, which I loved and I didn't see coming, and I thought that was a really good sequence. How did you like that?
Yeah, I thought it was great, especially the shot from above, where like you can see in every room, and like you can see like the layout of the house, and like he's just tearing up every room.
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
Breaking Bad always excels at those types of things. So does Better Call Saul. Like the idea of like you see a character's like going through the process of trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, I think Vince Gilligan excels at watching characters try to solve a problem, you know, and that's why I keep coming back to these shows of his, you know, too.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to mention that you basically just reminded me of was Vince Gilligan taking full advantage of the wide screen. Like he finally got like a movie lens, right? Like a wide angle lens, and he is taking full advantage of this. And goodness, this movie is filmed very well. And it makes you wish that he could just go back and just refilm Breaking Bad in cinematic lenses, because man, that show would be great.
Yeah, for sure. I think Vince Gilligan is a really great director, and I kind of want to see him break away from this universe and do something, I don't know, like do something fresh and original. I mean, not that these aren't original, but like put up a big movie, like do a movie that's outside of this universe.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I wonder if he has any interest in doing actual movies, or if he's comfortable on TV.
Yeah, I'm definitely TV is the medium he's spent most of his time in, and
it's been good to him.
Yeah, and good to us, to be honest.
That's true. Oh yeah, did you notice that in Todd's room, there's the spider that the little boy had that he killed in Dead Freight. That was the spider that was in the cage. But did you also notice that Todd had a Todd/Lydia themed snow globe?
I saw the snow globe, but I did not realize that it was a.
Do you remember from Breaking Bad? Todd had a thing for Lydia.
Yeah, I remember that now.
That's why he wanted Jesse to cook for him so much. So I'm pretty sure that snow globe is just like Todd and Lydia, and he's like worshiping her like while she's sitting on something. I'm pretty sure that's what the snow globe is.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: what do you think about Todd spinoff series? Because I think that character has a lot of depth, or that you can maybe he's too evil, but
you'd have to give him like a Jesse Pinkman-esque sidekick.
Yeah, I love Todd. I think he's great. He was one of the best things in the ending like couple of seasons too.
Yeah, he's definitely the standout performance, I guess, especially like I guess in season 5, the last half for sure. Whenever he really starts to hang out with Jesse a lot. And you start to get like the dynamic that played out in this movie, but you know, the show version of it. Oh yeah, so I really appreciated how they brought Robert Forster back. The vacuum guy. Yeah. So I was wondering, if they were going to bring him back because, you know, they made the whole point in, or at least Saul did in season 4, which is basically like no do-overs, right? And Jesse pretty much walked away from this guy first so he could go try to kill Walt at the end of season 4. And so I was wondering if they're going to bring him back, and they did. And so
thank goodness.
Yeah, I agree. But also I wonder if that's part of why some people feel underwhelmed by this, because it's just using elements of things that we already knew were there instead of introducing new. Do you think that has anything to do with some of the disappointment people are feeling, or you personally, or is that something else?
Well, yes, that is there. And I think that what you said makes a lot of sense. They don't necessarily introduce new elements in this film, which is okay, because I think what we talk about is that it works better as an epilogue to the series, so sticking around in that universe is fine. I gotta say, though, I can't be upset about Robert Forster being in this. Like, there are other things I would excise before that, because I loved the scene. I love Robert Forster in this. I just recently this year rewatched Jackie Brown.
Oh, he's
and
so
Robert
good
Forster's,
in that movie.
Yeah, and he's so good in here. It's almost the same character to an extent, the Max Cherry character.
Yeah.
Just anyways, but I love him in this. And in fact, I think the other thing that's great about it is that Jesse Pinkman, the whole movie, we see Jesse Pinkman, the broken and battered, you know, like the stray dog trying to, you know, get a crumb, you know, right? But in this, we get to see Jesse Pinkman, I think, as Jesse Pinkman from the first couple of seasons, where he thinks he's one-upped Robert Forster's character, but then he really hasn't, you know, like when Robert Forster calls 911. And there's like that attitude that Jesse Pinkman has that isn't really there in this movie, except for that scene. And I really like that.
Yeah. A lot of this movie is, considering it's about Jesse Pinkman's very quiet and stoic through a lot of it. Considering in the show he was so emotional and so ready to suffer.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I enjoy seeing this side of Jesse Pinkman. It really does feel like, sure, maybe the movie doesn't go a whole lot of new places. Maybe it's pretty simple. Maybe we end in too similar of a place that the finale ended. I disagree from the sheer standpoint of Jesse's character. He gets closure with his friends. He gets, you know, his friends tell him that, or Skinny Pete's like, "'Cause you're my hero, man," or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't think he ever would have come to that conclusion. And I think he needed to hear that.
Right.
Because I think near the end of the show, I think he kind of felt like a loser and like a punching bag, basically.
Oh, yeah. Jesse Pinkman was at the lowest he'd ever been in the show, like escaping from the Nazis. You know,
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know. How did you feel after the finale? Did you want more from Jesse's story ever at any point when the finale ended, or were you happy with him riding off into the sunset or into the darkness in an El Camino, likely to be caught by the police, or, you know, probably not going to get away, you know? That was always the impression I had at the end of Breaking Bad, which is that, like, well, yeah, he's out, but his life's over, you know?
Yeah, he's just going to get like 5 miles down the road and then get arrested. Okay, so what I'll say, you know, it's been a long time since I've watched these, and if I had any qualms with it, I've come to terms with it by now, you know, like, so I didn't mind it, because in my head, the two stories can exist simultaneously, right? There's one story where Jesse gets arrested, and then there's also a story where he escapes and goes to Alaska and lives the rest of his life out peacefully, right? So both of those things existed in my head at the same time, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I was fine with that. So I'd come to terms with it. I don't know. I still don't know if this movie just justifies its existence to me, because it just, I don't know. It feels like it ends in the same spot, like you were saying, kind of. And don't get me wrong on that. I enjoyed every moment of it. I just don't know that it justifies its existence.
I mean, this is your reaction right now is the reaction I expected everyone to have when this movie was announced. Only because that's how I felt the entire first season of Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul didn't get great until like season 2, I think. It was always good, much like El Camino is, but I didn't think Better Call Saul had justified its existence until season 2. So I'm wondering if, just from the sheer nature of this being a movie and we only have 2 hours and change,
yeah,
by the nature of a movie, I wonder if there's anything that could have been done to, use your term, justify its existence, you know?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like I said, it's at the beginning, it's a high bar, and it's unfair to the movie. But those are the standards, or that's what I'm bringing into it, if that makes sense. I can't help but wonder, and I also think this isn't fair to the movie, but like if they had done like a 5-episode series, if that would have made it better, because then we could have gotten a little bit more from the villain, who I think is great, and I think there's great moments like the Western standoff at the very end.
Right.
is really fun.
That's the weakest part, though.
Yeah, but if they had if you could have had a couple of episodes where he shows up in every episode and it's just really,
we got to know him,
villainous. Yeah, if we get to know him a little bit more.
So that's a good point. I like how they tied him in with Jesse's existing arc. Right, he's the guy that built the cage. Okay, that's good. I like that. Okay, he's going after Todd's money. I like that too. All of this checks out. The Western standoff at the end was a little odd. And I think if I had to pick a problem with the movie, I think that's it. And I understand why he does it. He doesn't view Jesse as like a threat. Jesse, in his mind, had like a .22 gun, which you could unload on someone with a .22 and probably not kill them.
Yeah.
So I understand why he wanted to do this. They just felt really convenient.
He was also coked up and drunk too.
True.
So
Totally true. And I think Jesse, even if he didn't even if he wasn't like, Jesse, we're gonna have a standoff, Jesse could have antagonized him into wanting to attack. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So not super bad, but I agree with you there that the villain's good, but man, more time would have been better if the villain had already been in Breaking Bad, like had been someone who was already existed in the show previously. That would have been better, I think.
Yeah, that may have detracted from the show, though.
Yeah, agreed.
So
yeah, I agree. So it's kind of one of those things, but I think by the nature of the movie in and of itself, it's one of those things where it was always going to feel underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, and that's because my bar was so high to begin with, right?
Well, I also feel like your bar is high because you haven't just rewatched the series recently. I feel like if you rewatch the series and then watch this, it feels like more of the same.
Okay, yeah.
And of one piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would definitely feel like an epilogue. And that's kind of, I'm glad that you're saying that because you just watched it and we kind of have this, contrasting opinion or like views on what we're talking about. So, yeah, I think I'll probably rewatch this at some point, maybe after Better Call Saul. I'm not sure, but...
Yeah, when you do, just throw this on as the real finale of the season, or the series, you know?
So let me ask you, if I was going to rewatch it, do you watch Breaking Bad first, or do you watch Breaking Call? Or Breaking Call
Saul?
Yeah, Breaking Call Saul. Better Call Saul first.
I've often wondered that really just depends on how the next couple seasons of Better Call Saul goes, because my plan before El Camino was a thing, I was mentioning that I was holding off on rewatching Breaking Bad. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up breaking down and doing it after this trailer for El Camino. But my plan originally was to wait until Better Call Saul was done and then rewatch Breaking Bad.
Right.
But now that I've rewatched Breaking Bad, I'm probably not going to want to do it for a couple of years again. So I think when Better Call Saul ends, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what the chronological order is of everything, which is going to be interesting because Better Call Saul is skipping around in time, and I'm pretty sure within the next season or two, they're going to skip ahead to post-Breaking Bad timelines.
Yeah, that'll all be very interesting, too.
Yeah, so I don't know if it'll work that way, but it'd be interesting to watch like the first 4 seasons of Better Call Saul, then Breaking Bad, then El Camino, and then if any of Better Call Saul in the future picks up after Breaking Bad, start watching the episodes where a bulk of the timeline takes place afterwards. There, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And then by the end of it, you'll have this huge Albuquerque crime saga where ages don't matter and people's weights fluctuate all the time and people get old and they get young and then they get old again.
Apparently the Breaking Bad universe, has something wrong with the timeline fluctuations.
All that meth people are doing.
Yeah. I got another question for you, and we're kind of, I think we've talked a lot about El Camino, but just this is in general for the Breaking Bad universe. Is there a character that you would like to see a spinoff of? Like whether it's Skinny Pete or what's his name? Gene Esposito plays him, or Esposito's his last name. What is his name? The Carlo Esposito. What?
Giancarlo?
Giancarlo. I was wrong
Esposito?
all around.
Yeah. No, I think Gus is being plenty fleshed out in Better Call Saul, as is Mike, as is Jimmy / Saul. Jesse was plenty fleshed out within Breaking Bad itself, plus the movie. If anyone were to get their own, I think we're done with series. I don't think we need any more series. But this was called El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
I could go for a movie about other characters who were tangentially affected by Walt's crimes and their stories to get free. Like, for example, what if Robert Forster's character gets his own movie because they catch on to his business?
Yeah, something along those lines.
And he has to go through a process of trying to get himself a new identity, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe Badger and Skinny Pete if they had, but I can't imagine them having anything important to do.
Yeah, a half-hour sitcom with him.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought Better Call Saul was going to be when it was first announced. He was like,
"That's true.
We're going to get a Better Call Saul show about Jimmy McGill becoming Saul Goodman," and I was thinking 30-minute comedy.
Man, they've really surpassed my expectations with Better Call Saul. I can't, sing that show's praises anymore.
If only we were getting a season 2 of El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
Yeah.
Real quick, the only other thing that I wanted to say is I did enjoy that they were able to address Jesse's parents again. And it also made me sad because I thought whenever he called them to get them to go away, I didn't realize he was going after their guns. I thought he was going after, like, valuables, and I thought he was just going to rob his parents. And I was like, oh, Jesse, this is not what I want a post-Breaking Bad Jesse to be doing.
Yeah, he's having to steal from his parents again.
But luckily he was just going after a gun, which I feel better about. I don't care if he steals their gun. As long as he doesn't steal, like, their money.
Yeah, I guess he's still stealing valuables, but at least he's using them to protect himself, right?
Yeah, but guns aren't that valuable, It's not like they need the gun to pay their bills. But also, it makes me sad that they're going to realize that Jesse bamboozled them and that he stole their guns and that and that he's, in their eyes, probably just as bad as they assume he is.
That's a really sad story that, he'll never see him again. And that's unfortunate.
And they'll think of him completely forever as a violent meth head criminal.
Yeah, which isn't undeserved, to be honest, but
not inaccurate.
He just doesn't have a chance to prove himself different.
It makes me sad that they don't know that he has a good heart and didn't want this path to happen to him. He just made terrible choices.
Yeah.
And it's sad because we're actually going back and rewatching Breaking Bad. There are, like, multiple times throughout the series where Jesse gives good advice to Walt and keeps getting wrapped up and drug in further because Walt's stupidity and arrogance. Like, he tries to quit multiple times in season 1, and Walt won't let him. Walt pretty much blackmails him into being his partner. When Walt was going to be the one to kill Gale, Jesse was like, "No, go to the cops. I don't want you to have to kill Gale. That's wrong." And then Walt bends the situation into a way to where not only is Walt not going to do it, he makes Jesse do it when Jesse was the one encouraging Walt not to do it in the first place. So, like, Jesse just never stood a chance. He was just being manipulated ever since season 1. I think this movie is very cathartic in the sense that finally Jesse's done being manipulated. You know what I mean? He's doing things all on his own now. And I think that does justify the movie's existence, personally speaking.
Yeah, and that makes sense, for sure. To be honest, in the show, Jesse's always kind of tangential to Walt. Like, it's Walt's story, the show is. Where the movie... And I was worried that the movie would suffer from not having Walt in it very much because that dynamic was so interesting between Jesse and Walt. But I don't think it suffers from not having Walt in it. I think Walt hovers. He may not be in it very much, but he hovers all around the movie because this is all his fault, or his responsibility. And I think Todd even kind of stands in for Walt a little bit because he's just another guy manipulating Jesse.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I think that this movie this movie retroactively makes Jesse's arc feel more complete in my eyes. Instead of, something always felt a little off about it because Jesse's arc in Breaking Bad was, all right, loser, start to self-actualize, and then spend the rest of the series suffering from sadness and depression. So this actually gives him like a completion to an arc that felt a little underwhelming in the last couple years of the show.
Yeah, so I'm excited to do my rewatch and add this to that watch and see how I feel about it.
I think the key is when you look back at the show now, and like the finale was always the end, right? But now, like when you look back at the show, you have to repurpose the end and add this slot in there, like with new information. Mm-hmm. So like when you look back at like Jesse driving away, for years that was the last time you ever saw him. For now, you have to readjust and be like, okay, then starts his other adventure. So it's like it's weird to like recontextualize. The end is no longer the end, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if that's some of my reaction to it being able to justify itself is I've lived with the end for so long, I'm having a tough time recontextualizing and making this the end, you know? So that makes sense.
And me too, right? I still am not there yet. When I look back, I'm like, the end of Breaking Bad. I still have to be like, oh yeah, there's a new movie now with more information. I have to like manually insert into my memories, you know? Because I've lived with the finale of Breaking Bad. I've thought about the finale of Breaking Bad. I've been in the shower getting ready for work days, and I've like throughout the years, and every time my mind goes to Breaking Bad, I'm always like, oh yeah, that show was that show nailed the ending, you know? So it's going to be interesting now when you look back at that show and think about it to like add this into the equation the same way I'm trying to add Better Call Saul into the equation, you know?
Yeah, and that's another risk that they took by adding this movie, because you saying they nailed the ending is what they did, and as we've seen over the years, it's hard to end a series. And I think that they ended the series really well, one of the best endings of a series. And I don't know that there's a lot of blowback. Some people I'm sure would disagree with that, but I think it's one of the best ended.
But it wasn't, like, let's put it this way, like, the finale of Breaking Bad's not perfect, right? Mm-hmm. There's some conveniences with like the robot machine gun garage door opener thing that wasn't well received by everybody. But I've also never seen a series complete out in such a way to where like as many people were happy with it as they were with Breaking Bad. So that's something, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And hopefully if someone, didn't like this movie, doesn't like El Camino, write in, let us know why. But hopefully this movie didn't tarnish the end of Breaking Bad. Like, hopefully, if you watch this movie and you're like, this was stupid and pointless, you can just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Then it doesn't exist, and Breaking Bad's a standalone thing. That's perfectly fine, too.
I agree with that.
Yeah, anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed it as well. Let us know. If you guys want more content like this, let us know. If you have thoughts about El Camino, send them our way.
Yeah, so thanks for listening, and we also want to thank Jake Wagner Russell for his intro-outro music, and you can visit his stuff at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
That's right, and stay tuned to this channel. We just put out an episode on Joker. It took me a minute to remember what came out last week, and then next week we'll be doing a Casualty Criterion for Punch Drunk Love. Yeah. So, lots of content. Should be fun. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah. See you guys later.
Boo.